Oh, I could.
Commissioner Palmer? Commissioner Chang? Commissioner McMahon? Here. Commissioner Ramos? Commissioner Rucker? Here. Vice Chair Greaves? Here. Chair Lujan? Here.
Vice Chair Greaves, will you please lead us in Pledge of Allegiance?
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I forgot how to turn on the mic.
Okay. Oh, gosh.
Oh, it's on. Okay.
Great, thank you. Moving on to the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes or edits to the agenda? Seeing as there are none, can we entertain a motion? Vice Chair Greaves? Oh, is it on?
Move to approve the agenda.
We have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? No? All right, motion approves. Sorry, I'm working out this thing. The new technology. All right, great. Moving on to the approval of the minutes. Do we have any changes or edits to the minutes from our last meeting from February 5th, 2020? Seeing as there are none, we can entertain a motion.
A motion to approve the minutes for the February 5th, 2020 meeting.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, minutes from February 5th, 2020 have been approved. And moving on to item number 5, correspondence. Director Walker, any correspondence?
Madam Chair, we have none.
Okay, great. Item number 6, presentations. There are none. So moving on to item number 7, business from the floor. This is the time to address the commission with issues that are not on the agenda, that are within the commission subject matter jurisdiction, maximum 3 minutes per speaker. Seeing as there are none for business from the floor, we'll go ahead and close business from the floor. Item number 8, business to speak about Patch Park Master Plan update. We're going to go ahead and hand it off to Jim Simpson to speak about this particular update to the park, to the master plan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have next to me Kurt Nichols with Carlisle Macy. He'll be taking over part of the presentation in a few minutes as well. So, and I don't know if Director Walker will want to add anything as well. What I want to stress here is that we had a presentation at a public meeting on the 26th last week, and we did have 3 commissioners attend that. Thank you. We had, I think, another 8 or 9 members of the public attend that. So I think between commissioners and staff, we were equal numbers in attendance at that. But what we're here for is to present to you what we presented to them, basically, except with towards the end here, I have some comments that we've received, in response to what we presented. But what we're looking at here is sort of an analysis of the approved Patch Park Master Plan and looking at it in light of what new needs, recreation needs and trends have occurred since the master plan was approved in 2004, and the first phase was completed in 2006, 07. So we've undertaken this study to move forward with bringing it into the 21st century, so to speak, and meeting the adjustments and needs that the city Parks and Recreation Department has identified. So we'll move through this sort of in a where we're at here is Owl Patch Park is off of Peabody Road at the corner of California Drive, which is actually state-owned property. It's part of the state medical facility property that the city leases, long-term lease, and develop the park on. There are single-family, higher-density residential developments to the north of California with some multifamily as well, and then single-family residential to the east of Peabody Road. And then on the west and the south is the medical facility properties. And so we are looking at this not only from a community park standpoint, which Owl Patch Park is, but also as the neighborhood serving park for those residents, because the original master plan did include children's play areas and picnic shelters for those types of neighborhood park users. And those were not developed with the first phase. So we're still looking at those amenities included in this as well. This is the approved, as it stands, the approved master plan. As you can see, there were 5 softball field, natural grass softball fields included in the plan, as well as a natural turf football field with an all-weather track around it. And then there's perimeter parking going from the west side around the street frontages all the way to the southern property boundary. And there is even a proposed realignment and signalization of Caldwell Drive with the state medical facility driveway there. So there's a tie into the park from that as well. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Kurt with Carlisle Macy, because they're the ones that prepared the actual master plan and first phase construction documents.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, I'm Kurt Nichols with Carlisle Macy, and it's my pleasure to be here with you this evening. And it was our great honor to be involved in the design of the original master plan and also the Phase 1 improvements. So I'll walk you through the revised master plan revisions that we're looking at. But first, just to kind of conclude on the existing approved master plan, as Jim said, there's 5 softball fields, natural turf, and a natural turf lighted soccer football field. There is also areas, let's see, is this gonna, oh good, I've got a pointer. So there was also originally envisioned, because of the track facility, to have an area for field events like, discus and shot put and long jumps and high jump and so forth, that were originally part of the original master plan. There was also proposed children's play area up in this location here, up toward the north. That's one of the things that we're looking at moving in the revision that I'll get to in a minute. We had a couple of large covered group picnic areas. There was also to be storage for track and field equipment, because again, the track facility was an important part of this, which was down in this area here. Maintenance facility, which is a fenced area up here in the northwest corner. And then there were, in the original master plan, Jim pointed out one of the vehicle access points down here that was planned realignment of Caldwell and make that a signalized intersection. And then there was the 2 that we have right now off of California Drive, this access here, and this one over here. And the total parking that was provided in the original master plan was for 658 cars. So this is just kind of a outline what I just went over with you. Moving to what was actually constructed as a first phase, probably easiest is to see it from the photo and see what it is. But so 3 of the softball fields were constructed in Phase 1. Let's see, there we go. Also the natural turf football soccer field, track, all-weather track around the football soccer field, a restroom concession building right here, and then the 2 vehicle access points that I just mentioned, over here off of California, and over here off of California. And then paved parking for 165 vehicles, some of which are accessible. And then this area over here of kind of gravel overflow parking. So that's what we have right now. And that's a summary of that. So this is the draft revised master plan that we're presenting to you this evening. I'm not sure that it shows all that well on here, but the existing facilities are kind of screened back a little bit. The new additions have stand out a little bit more. They have dark lines around them, and that's what shows up in the legend here, so that you can kind of distinguish the existing from the proposed. For example, the existing parking and paving is this lighter gray, and then the new is that would be proposed is the darker gray over here. So in general, everything on this easterly side are all the new area to be developed, and the area that we're looking at changing, making some changes to, as well as over here where the field events are on the current master plan for track. This is looked at for some other uses. What's shown on here is kind of a placeholder for a skate park in case the skate park at Three Oaks needs to be relocated. This was identified as a possible site for that. So again, this would keep the 3 lighted softball fields. We would add a new lighted artificial turf field of a multi-purpose nature that would have provisions to be another softball field. So we'd have a 4th softball field, but also could be a soccer, rugby, even football field. So all this is synthetic turf and can be used for all those functions. And lighted. Again, we keep the natural turf football soccer field and the track. In addition to the existing restroom concession building, we're proposing to add another just a restroom building here. It's very similar. The idea is it's similar to this one, and it kind of bookends this central spine through the facility, if you will. The children's play area that was up here, or is up here in the current master plan, is proposed to be relocated down to this area, with main idea to get it away from being in proximity for foul balls from the softball, potentially, and also a little further away from kind of the vehicular area here with the parking and so forth, to get it. So this would be, there's group picnic up in the current master plan, kind of in this area, and the play area was real close to the entry drive and the parking. So the idea is to move that down here to be further away, not in the line of fire, foul balls, and further away from the traffic. And then so the picnic area that was up here would expand a little bit, but still stay in this area under this plan. There's some additional picnic tables and shelters scattered throughout here, so primarily oriented around where the play areas would be. These are larger group picnic here, and they're kind of hard to see because they're under the trees right here, but there's kind of arraying picnic tables around the perimeter here in this location. Another new addition would be a measured distance path that would be a little more than 3/4 of a mile. So this dashed line here shows that. It generally follows around the perimeter of the park. There's other options as well, but this is one that would give you kind of a nice measured distance of a little over 3/4 of a mile. Let's see. This would keep the same 3 access points, the 2 current ones, plus the future that can be done with the realignment of the entry drive to the medical facility here with Caldwell Drive. But it also adds a new access off of Peabody because it's likely to be some time before this realignment that would be a significant project in itself would happen. So the idea is that the second phase could work with the two existing access points and a third one here off of Peabody that would be primarily right in, right out, but could also be left turn off of Peabody in from the northbound direction. And that's all, of course, subject to review by the traffic engineers and Public Works to verify that. And they've looked at that preliminarily to come up with what we're showing here. Let's see, and parking, oh yeah, basketball. Another new addition is basketball courts. So this is showing 4 courts here that would be, could be under cover, under 2 structures, kind of like big open barns, metal frame, clear span structures. So each of 2 would house 2 full-size basketball courts. Understand that there's consideration of perhaps other indoor basketball elsewhere in the city, which may mean that we don't need the structures to cover these. In which case, then they'd probably be uncovered, but basketball is proposed to be located here. Again, all the dark areas, additional parking to be added. And that would bring it up to, I think it's 588, what we're showing in this plan. And that was based on a reevaluation that we kind of talked about at the subcommittee level of looking at what the parking demands are and figuring, for example, on the softball fields, about 60 per field. And that's kind of based on you have people arriving for a first game, 2 teams. And then you have the next group coming after that before the others have left. And so that accounts for the overlap. Do that. Similarly on the soccer fields or soccer football, which would be basically these, allowing for 75 for each of those. The basketball courts at 50 each, again, figuring the overlap of teams and play for that. And then threw in a few more for skate park and in the picnic areas at 20 each. So based on that, showing a demand of around 570. So at 588, we have more than that. In terms of the layout, we were trying to keep with the theme established as far as the geometry of the original master plan, and so we're kind of keeping this main kind of axis and corridor through the middle here, and again bookending it with another restroom building here to match the other one, and working with the play area kind of off of that. The parking down here has a drop off built in for this area to make easy access to all these areas here. Additional pathways and trying to play off of what we have already. That's original plan is kind of more simple and economical. The paving is largely asphalt, and this area in here is decomposed granite. So continuing that, but adding some more concrete in other areas, particularly around the synthetic turf. You want a nice band around that to keep that free of other things getting into it. Up here, the main pedestrian access that works for the park is kind of from the signalized intersection up here at California and Peabody. So part of the idea is to pick up pedestrians here and bring them in to the park through a walkway and into kind of an entry plaza here right at the new synthetic field, and then to just kind of connect up other walkways here. We're also adding additional walkways in this plan that we didn't have before. And part of them would be on the measured distance path, but the idea being to pick up people as they park, and instead of having to, like if you parked out here, walk through the parking lot, there's actually a walkway to keep that separated, get you to the interior of the park. Let's see, I think I covered most of what was on here. I have another image. This is just the same. It turns out it wasn't much bigger than the other one. I thought that one might be smaller. This is just, again, kind of a listing of all the amenities in the park that we were just talking about. Just some blow-ups of some of the areas. This is down by where the play area and the basketball courts are, to kind of see that in a little bit more detail. In this one, you can kind of pick up what's existing. So you can see the existing trees here kind of outlined in gray, and then the new ones would be outlined in the darker colors here. You can kind of see how the new fits with the existing. And then again, a blow up in the northeast corner where the new synthetic field would be, and showing how it connects to other things. And finally, another blow up of the area where the skate park could be, or possibly other things. Again, this is kind of a placeholder depending on whether we need to locate a skate park elsewhere besides Three Oaks. Let's see. So that pretty much the plan that we have in mind. So I think Jim's going to go over the comments that we heard at the meeting last week, and we'll do that questions, I guess.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, so I've included in the staff report some emails I got and messages for people that couldn't make the meeting last week, and they're included in this as well. There were one general comment that they like the idea, they like the play area and the picnic areas and the basketball courts. There's suggestion to consider adding community gardens to the Owl Patch Park. Also, the suggestion to add or keep a dog park area in there. A little bit of history on that is in the needs assessment that was done, identifying a need for off-leash dog parks within the city. That consultant looked at the citywide community parks and just put into that list that Owl Patch might be a location for a future off-leash dog park. In the interim, between staff and commissioners, you've decided on where the off-leash dog parks will be developed, and Owl Patch is not on that list. I think there's 5, if I'm correct, Hugh, 5 off-leash dog parks planned. More, okay. So that's why Kurt included it, because it was identified in that needs assessment document. But again, the actions and the implementation with the temporary dog park at Centennial and the permanent one under construction at Roberts Ranch Park, it's proceeding along those lines and not included at Owl Patch Park any longer. There's also suggestion last week to include pickleball courts, which again, that's another hard court similar to a tennis court or a basketball court. You can put 2 pickleball courts or more in the space of tennis and basketball courts. The question came up as to, these are programmed as adult softball fields. Can youth sports use the fields, and can they be adjusted for youth sports? And is there a need for youth-oriented amenities and fields at Owl Patch Park? Again, that's I want to say more of a programming level decision. I think, again, I'm talking from a planning standpoint. So from a planning standpoint, yes, the fields can be altered and adjusted to meet different age groups and different leagues. Right now, they are set up as adult softball. And I understand historically, the Keating fields, which are Little League fields, have had tournaments and needed Owl Patch Park, and so they brought in temporary pitchers mounds and made adjustments to meet Little League standard. So that's always, I mean, that is a possibility, but right now there is still a need for adult softball fields, and Owl Patch is the only place that those are really provided. Will the natural grass fields stay grass? Yes. So the 3 natural grass fields and the natural grass football field would remain natural grass, but we're looking at a synthetic artificial turf for the combined multi-sport field so that it's more available for programming and more manageable from a maintenance standpoint. And then what else could go into the skate park area? Some of these other uses might be considered for that area. Again, the skate park at this point is just a placeholder, just to see if in the facilities assessment of Three Oaks, there's a real strong need to move that skate park, where could it go and still serve the similar population in the area? And so that Owl Patch Park was tested to see if we could fit at least that size skate park in or more, and it worked. So that's why that's shown in there. Current lack of parking impacts neighborhoods during tournaments and events. So that came through both as a comment last week and as a telephone message that I received for someone that couldn't come to the meeting, is that again, historically, when there's been tournaments or other events at Owl Patch Park, it significantly impacts the parking into the neighborhood, especially off California Boulevard to the north of California Drive there. And then so what's being considered is, well, we would build out the parking to provide more than what we think is necessary for the build out of the park. Right now, that's about 50 spaces less than the current master plan, but we've also changed the activities taking place in the way that those activities may or may not overlap. So it lessens the demand in our factors there. And then there was, again, concern about further aggravating existing traffic issues and safety issues on Peabody at California. Again, we've been requested to keep the permanent driveway possibility to the realignment of Caldwell available if Public Works moves forward with signalizing that intersection, which we have worked that into the master plan. And in the interim, they've reviewed the draft master plan with the support of that driveway added in off of Peabody Road with what was originally anticipated to be right in and right out movements only, but they have allowed a left turn, northbound left turn into the Peabody, but no left turns out of Peabody. I mean, out of the park site onto Peabody. So those are the comments that we received last week. And I think, again, where we're at with you this evening is to take additional comments and review observations, take those back for Kurt to digest and work into the plan, as well as meeting with the subcommittee, which Commissioner McMahon is a member of, as well as members of the Public Works and Community Development Departments. And then move on to refining the master plan to bring back for more of a final review and ultimately approval from the Parks and Rec Commission. Part of this, the original master plan did go to Planning Commission because it had a conditional use permit. Community development staff is working to try and make a determination that they can handle it at the staff level for the modifications. It may still need to go to Planning Commission at this point, but they are working to try and streamline that process a little bit. Of course, we would have to do a CEQA review as well, but again, there is an existing mitigated negative declaration in place, and we would just be modifying that. And again, at this point, nobody's identified any environmental, any CEQA requirements that would prohibit the kinds of things that we're talking about doing. It's not that significantly different than the existing approved master plan. So I think with that, we're open for questions and comments.
Great, thank you very much for the presentation. And Vice Chair Greaves, I believe you were at the meeting as well.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, I would just like to put my 2 cents in for keeping the skate park. I've heard some comments in the past that our existing skate park is kind of small, and I'm not really sure what our needs assessment says about skate parks. But I think either way, whether we move the one at Three Oaks or not, I think we should keep this skate park there at Owl Patch. I also think we should consider putting some pickleball courts there, because I don't remember there being plans for more. Roberts Ranch, how many? 4. Roberts Ranch. I still think we should consider pickleball courts at Owl Patch. And I love the idea of the walking path. Love it, love it, love it. That's all my comments.
Thank you, thank you. So let me preface this by saying I'm a huge track and field fan. So everything I say is going to have a huge bias towards that. Certainly love the idea of a skate park. I personally never skated, but there's plenty of people that do, and it's an incredible sport. That being said, I know there's a lot of different tracks around California that include triple jump, long jump, high jump, shot put, discus within the field. I know I've jumped in a lot of them as a former triple jumper myself. Is there a possibility of including some of those field events within the actual field?
I'll give you my answer and Kurt can jump in.
Okay.
Looking at the size of the football field in the area, well, thank you, within the all-weather track, it's questionable whether they could, all of those field event type of pits and runs could be accommodated in there without taking the football field away. Like that's my 2 cents at this moment, kind of a gut feeling.
Are you interested primarily in the jumps, or, I mean, you're looking to include the shot put and discus as well, and?
Selfishly, the jumps.
Okay.
Only because I did it for 4 years and coached it for another 7.
Okay.
But that being said, I don't want to knock the other field sports because,
Sure.
in track and field is a huge aspect. of
I
that
only
sport.
asked that because I think it is easier to accommodate the jumps. I mean, particularly the discus needs a much, bigger area. Although, again, you can use the field for that and, throw
Yeah.
on that and just kind of, on a natural turf field, just, line it, for that when you have events. I think the jumps could be accommodated in what, we refer to as the D zones, at the end, at the ends of the fields, because you can kind of see faintly a football goalpost there and here. So that gives you some sense of, the space that's the end. So we do a lot of high school stadiums, and that's typically how the jump events are handled. Typically, at the high jump at at one end, and then probably long jump, triple jump, a couple pits and runways for those at the other end.
Yeah, because I know with shot put, for what it's worth, you can mostly do that anywhere. I know they have a specific ring that's a part of it, but it's not 100% necessary. Hopefully no shot putters are watching this right now. Sorry. Discus, same thing. You can kind of practice anywhere, but long jump and triple jump, you obviously need a pit to safely jump into. High jump, that requires additional equipment that I know would be another cost and another conversation. But additionally, you also need very specific equipment for that as well. So if there's any way possible to get at least long jump, triple jump, especially because that can be one pit, and high jump, and I'd love to see that.
Yeah, certainly. We can take a look at,
Okay, thank
take
you
a
so
look at
much.
how they fit. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rucker. Another thing too to throw out there, I know the skate park is used quite well from what I hear, but I've also heard out in the community with a growing senior population as well. And seeing the trend out there with different communities and different cities is they're starting to designate specific areas in a park that is meant for physical rehabilitation or other sorts of uses where some folks can go over there and do like easy exercises or something. And I'd be very curious to see, based on our needs assessment or based on our population, how we can serve certain residents with that particular area if we choose not to go with the skate park and just, exploring the options. I just wanted to put that out there. So thank you. Commissioner McMahon.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm going to agree with my fellow commissioners here. We do need a skate park somewhere in Vacaville. I know with Three Oaks' future being uncertain at this point, that skate park is a bit dated. So if we do go with a skate park at Owl Patch, a more modern, up-to-date skate park would be great. If perhaps we don't put a skate park there, that may possibly be a good area for pickleball. I don't know, I know that that's a windy area of town, so I don't know how that would play in with pickleball there off the back of hills right there. That it may not be a good spot for pickleball, but perhaps something to consider. And then also, I think I mentioned this early on. I think this is a great opportunity and a great location to have some sort of marquee out there for the city in the front of this park on the corner. It's a high traffic area. I think it would benefit this department as well as the city if we had some sort of electronic signage out there to advertise our programs as well as other events that are happening in the city.
I agree with Commissioner McMahon that would be a great idea to have that sort of signage. Commissioner Palmer?
Thank you. I was at the meeting last week and I think this park's a great idea. One thing that was mentioned though, that if that space wasn't used for a skate park, which I'm not for or against it at all, but didn't you mention something that could be part of more of a field, a field area for track and field? Was that mentioned, something about that area being opened up for?
That's what's in the,
Current master.
yeah, if we go back. Yeah, so right, there's my, oop, now I've done it.
And again, just to be clear, I wasn't against, I think it's great if we do expand the a skateboard area, but I thought that you had mentioned that could be, was that?
Yeah, see, if you can see where the arrow is right now, see, that's what's in the current, that's how that space was used in the,
Oh, and it does
in the
show,
current master plan. So it's got the jumps here, and it had a shot put and discus both in
and
there.
it shows the pits as well.
Yeah, right.
And don't we have some organizations that use this park? Director Walker, didn't you mention that there is some organizations that use this for field now?
We, through the Park and Rec Department, do offer a track and field a track program. It's more track. There's not really the field programming happening. It's pretty much solely track. So running and, relays and hurdles. And so that is a program that the Park and Rec Department offers.
Do we have any parks in the city now that have facilities or areas for track and field besides, would it just be the high schools?
Yeah, just the high schools.
Yeah, all right.
Great. Commissioner Chang?
Well, thank you for coming, and I think it's going to be a very busy park. And also it's hard for planning a park like this, and everybody want a pickleball field and a track and whatever in such a limited space. My question is on the safety. And nothing is mentioned on the lightings. You mentioned you have a lot of trees that you're going to plant in the park. But is there any change in the lighting system? You're going to add more lightings in the park?
Yes. So the Yeah, so the new fields would be lighted in addition to, there's lighting in the parking lot. There'd be lighting, just like there is currently in these areas here, to make sure that, you know, those are lit up at night, so it feels safe. As well as the field lighting will, you know, carry a fair amount, but.
And the
yeah.
basketball courts.
Yeah, and the basketball courts are also to be lit. So,
Okay,
yeah.
that's good. Then my second question is, looking at the map over there, supposing someone have heart attack in the center of the park, and how the emergency vehicles able to have access to it?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So right now, they can access from here, you know, right from the end, this area to get into the center. As
Now,
we
is
have-
there a clear path for the vehicle to go?
Yeah, that's clear all the way through here. And then additionally, we'll have an area from this side now. That's a good point. These walkways, as they're currently shown on here, aren't that wide. This one could be widened a little bit more. Yeah, and then that would allow that. But the primary access I was thinking of was from down here. That, again, you'd be able to come through here.
Okay, that's good. All right.
In addition, you know, we also have this area over here as well. So you can also come this way, and then there's a turnaround in this area here, so, for fire.
That's good.
Good
Thank you.
points. Yeah, good points, thank you.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Chang. Any other questions or comments? Great, well, thank you very much for your presentation and keeping us updated on this. Oh, thank you. Seeing as it is a business, we can open it up for public comments. Anyone? Seeing as there are none, we'll go ahead and close public comment. And then, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 8B, business signage for off-leash areas. And this will be presented by Hugh Hesterman. Thank you, Hugh. Go ahead and turn it on. And actually, Director Walker?
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I may, I know at last month's meeting, the commission, there was a consensus for this item not to come back to the commission. Commissioner Palmer did point out that she believed that there had been mentioned at a previous meeting that it would come back to the commission as an agendized item. And so in going back and looking at, I think it was the October minutes, we determined that putting it on an agenda was mentioned, or actually, Park Planner Hugh Hesterman mentioned that there was an option of bringing it back as an agendized item, but was looking for direction and/or consensus from the commission. That was the night that your meeting went very, very late, and I think that there wasn't real clear direction. And so it did come back, but it did not come back as an agendized item. So just to make sure that, we're following a good process, I did contact Commissioner Palmer, and she did request that it be put back on tonight's agenda.
Great, thank you very much. Well, in that case, I know that meeting did go long, and it'd be I think it would benefit everybody also to know what's within our purview, or what's within the domain of the things that we make decisions on. So I think it'd be for clarity for everybody, just to put that out there. But with that, we thank you, Hugh, for bringing that back on the agenda. And with that, we'll go ahead and pass it on to you.
Okay, well, thank you and good evening. As Director Walker mentioned, there was not real good clarity in the direction as to exactly what was to come back to the commission for further discussion, whether it be the ordinance, which was passed by both this commission and then council, or the recommendations, or the presentation of the signage, actually what color the sign is and that sort of thing. And so just to clear all that up, and then with Director Walker, Palmer's, not Director, excuse me, Commissioner Palmer's request, is back on the agenda for a little bit further discussion. To answer your question, Chair Lujan, about what's in your purview, I would hope that the commissioners would feel that anything in our Parks and Rec system is open for discussion. So if you're out in a park and you see something that doesn't seem right, we definitely want to be notified about that. And if it's something that is curious or needs some discussion, certainly that can be agendized. And so this sort of falls in that category, I think. Typically, signage is not something that is presented to the commission unless it's maybe the marquee, for example, over at Ulatis or something like that. But we put up signs throughout the parks. We take down signs throughout the parks, sometimes at the request of a commissioner who's notified us that, hey, there's something odd about that sign. Can you check it out? But it's routinely done at a staff level. As I mentioned before, though, anything's fair game as far as I'm concerned for making our Parks and Rec system work for the general public. And I think there's a tendency too for staff when you are deep into the thought, especially with signage, that sometimes you forget to step back and say, how does this actually appear to the casual user? Somebody walking up and seeing that sign for the first time. So it's always good to have another set of eyes on it. So there was basically three things that were talked about at our prior commission meeting that I think we need to bring back forward. I don't think there was, if I recall, there wasn't any concern about the signage for the items that are actually controlled by the ordinance, either past ordinance or the most current one that was approved by council. I think it was focused on the two recommendations, one being the various age recommendations for users of the park, and then the second being we had a fair bit of discussion about the bringing bottles into the park. I'll go ahead and put that signage up on the screen here, and if I can, I will reduce it a little bit. I guess that'll work. I don't know why the format's off like that, but I don't think that's, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think anybody was concerned about the format. The first 5 items here, whoa, this thing's floating around, are supported by municipal code, either existing or recently approved. And then items 6 and 7 are the recommendations. And I believe there was 3 things that were discussed. One was this one here, the age years. It was recommended that owner handler should be 16 years of age or older. As discussed previously, the city attorney's office and I researched this a lot, along with all the input from the community, the dog park committee. There's nothing legally binding about that age. It was really the feeling of the dog park committee. And I think a lot of folks thought, well, hey, if we put you in charge of a 2,000-pound car, can you control a dog? And then there was a little bit more discussion about these other things. They don't specifically say, they don't use the word recommended. So that may be more of a presentation concern. The very last sentence here is children under 9 are not recommended in the off-leash area. And these two actually don't use that term recommendation. So that was the second item. And then the third thing that as I recall, and from also reviewing the video, was the issue about whether or not glass containers, well, I think there was some concern that maybe it should be codified and actually make it something enforceable. And that concerns me. I think I would certainly want to hear from our police officers if they want to be tasked with trying to catch somebody who's bringing a milk bottle or something into the dog park. So those were the things that I recall, and so I would like to put that into your hands tonight to complete the discussion. I also have another alternate wording that I can present that hopefully would give you a little more meat to chew on. In any case, as you may recall, the ordinances themselves have been approved by City Council. They are now ready to be enforced. And so there's a little bit of a cost associated with modifying that temporary sign that we put up for Centennial Park. And at this point, I would suggest that we just simply, well, this first one isn't the case. This one here, we could just add that little bit of reference to the municipal code to the existing sign, making it show that it's enforceable. And if somebody needed to be cited, there it is. That's the applicable section. Newer signs, at other dog parks, hopefully all the off-leash parks, the goal is to try to be consistent, both for the users, so that any off-leash area they go within Vacaville's area, that they all match, and also for the enforcers, so that if they don't have to worry about, well, it's okay to do that at that dog park, but not at this one. In other words, consistency being the goal. So I put that in front of you. I would certainly entertain any questions and be happy to answer whatever I can.
Great, thank you very much. Commissioner Palmer? Commissioner Palmer?
Thank you, Hugh, for bringing this back. On number 6, what would it look like to get rid of the first sentence altogether? And then just have it say, children under 16 years of age should be accompanied by an adult. So the owner handler should be 16 years of age or older, gone. That way there wouldn't have this discussion of the responsibility. It just would not be there. I did do some research, and also Commissioner Lujan had done some research, and I'll let her talk about some concerns she had on it. But the only thing that I noticed on that sentence was, or that number 6, was the first sentence. And I'm wondering what you guys think of that. Also, on number 7, it looks like you fixed it. Didn't it? I mean, it looks good now. Do not bring food of any kind or glass containers into the off-leash area. Did it say something else before?
No, that's the same exact verbatim that is on both the sign at the Centennial Dog Park and also that I had brought to you earlier.
Because the way it reads there, I mean, if you see that, you think it's a law, you think it's a rule. I mean, it is a
Yes.
recommendation, but for some reason, that looks fine to me now.
I think the conversation was about having enforcement, some sort of code on the side of it, and there wasn't, and then we sort of pondered
veering
about,
off on
well,
that.
should we use like litter, like what sort of codes, but yeah, I see.
I mean, by just reading it like that, it makes it, I mean, anybody that would have to sit there and go, wait a minute, these rest of these look like laws, but this bottom one isn't. I mean, if that's the rules and I'm walking into somewhere, if I read that, I would think, that's the rules are the rules. But again, the recommendation I'm having is for number 6. And I actually spoke with a city staff person, and that was something that they had suggested. So I don't know, and that was something for me to chew on and think about for a while, that on number 6, if it just said, children under 16 years of age should be accompanied by an adult, children under 9. So I don't know what anybody else's thoughts are.
I think from the liability issue, the municipality having, a dog park, I think it's immune from any sort of civil or criminal liability because all the liability rests on the owner. Correct. I think from what my understanding is. So, yeah, I mean, but my only concern was with the children under 9. So, but now I looking at every dog park, it varies from city to city. And these are just recommendations, so I'm curious what the commission thinks, but I mean, these are recommendations, and I do like how you said children under 9 are not recommended in the off-leash area. That really puts the onus on the parent to decide whether or not the environment is something that they could let their children into and judging for themselves. And so it doesn't kick a lot of our youth out, and it doesn't prohibit youth from coming in and being a part of it. And Commissioner McMahon.
Thank you. I don't have a problem with the way it read originally. I absolutely agree with you. If a 16-year-old person can get in a vehicle and drive across town to take their dog to the park, I think that that's totally acceptable. And the last thing we want to do is put so many rules on this park that people just don't use the park. There's a lot of very responsible 16-year-old young adults out there, so I don't have a problem with the way it originally read, personally.
Great, thank you. Anyone else like to, Commissioner Chang?
Yeah, Hugh, I look at it is, the first sentence is say the owner should be 16 years of age, all right, or older. And then the second sentence say should be accompanied by an adult. So no matter what, you still need to have an adult to be there, correct?
Well, if you're 16 or under, right? Under 16, they're saying you should be accompanied by an adult.
So 16 is okay by themselves.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a recommendation. It's not enforceable, though.
So you remove that first sentence, so it's supposing a 16 years old come in with a dog.
It just made that line confusing.
Yeah.
It means the
It
same
was just
thing.
recommended to me that the staff person that brought it to my attention watched the video also. And we went on and on. It went on for a while about this. And when they said that, to take the first sentence out, I was just like, wow. I mean, that just, it takes away the confusion. If it just said, children under 16 years of age should be accompanied by an adult. Well, the adult right there, when you say the word adult, that assumes that the owner handler is an adult. Children under 9 are not recommended. So I thought it was a great idea, and I think that the staff member that mentioned it to me, it was pretty reputable, so that's why. So that's what I'm recommending.
I think there might be a little confusion about the fact that this statement as it is here doesn't say anything about the handlers. Doesn't say anything about minimum age to handling. It's just talking about being in the dog park. That was the big concern was if you as a young person under 18 bring a dog into a dog park, are you going to be responsible enough to, follow the laws? And if there's a problem, will you be able to get your dog out of there so it doesn't cause a greater problem? Whereas if with this change, that recommendation is just not there about how old a person should be to handle a dog. It doesn't say, it just says that under 16, you basically you shouldn't be in the park unless you're accompanied by an adult. And there are families that do come in sometimes with, there may be 3 or 4 members of a family that come in with their 1 or more dogs, and they'll mill around and interact with the animals. But in that case, the adult would be the one who was in charge of the animal. What we were trying to do earlier with that previous sentence was to say, how old can a person handle a dog in the dog park? Again, recommendation, so.
And you said there was also another option as well.
Yeah, you want to see that?
Commissioner Griggs, did you want to see this, or did you want to, I know you had a
Yeah,
comment.
I wanted to speak on what's existing. So the way this sentence was, the way number 6 was before you removed that first section,
There you go.
because you start off talking about the handler, all the other stuff kind of assumes you're still talking about the handler. So removing that, it makes it clear that you shouldn't be in the park if you're under 16 and accompanied by adult. You have to be accompanied by adult, but not even there if you're not 9 or under, accompanied by an adult or not. I think that's clear. I think that's clear that way. So, yeah, without the mention of the owner handler, I think it's clear without that sentence. I think that just kind of, that's what brings the confusion in, because the other 2 pieces of that line aren't necessarily related, unless you split them up. That's it. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think keeping that in there and having two separate sentences for the 16, it's somewhat naturally implied that the handler, if in there, is going to be over 16 years old anyways, and that's the recommendation. Okay. Did you want to show it the other option?
Yeah,
Thanks, Hugh.
I'll just offer this, if maybe it might have trouble here. There we go. Oops, it put them together. Sorry about that. Oh, I should have closed that, I guess. Let me try again. Sorry. There we go. So this separates them out. Now, I just threw in there 18 years of age because that was one of the suggestions before. But as was just discussed, there are 4 separate recommendations as opposed to being in a single sentence. The advantage of going this way is that these are more clearly supported by the ordinance, and then these items here are more clearly recommendations. This would work too.
Commissioner Greaves?
Well, here's my, my concern about this. Commissioner McMahon has mentioned that if we get to too many rules, he said, you know, people won't use a park. People won't even look at the rules if there's too many. So that's my only concern with these. It makes it much more clear that these are recommendations. However, by clearly defining them as recommendations, people are not going to follow them.
I agree. I prefer the other one more, and limiting it, because also there just seems like a lot of rules and it not as friendly of a version, I guess. So, yeah, so does anyone else? Oh, Commissioner Chang?
My concern is the liability issue. If you have someone with 16 and bring the dog in and anything happen, would that affect the city?
Maybe we should ask our city attorney to
I think
respond to that.
So we did have the city attorneys, or one of them legal speak here, and I remember that
Yes.
was a consistent issue being addressed where he was saying that no, the city shouldn't be, but I will let Andrea go ahead and chime in as well.
Yeah, so in general civil liability, the owner of the animal is liable for acts by the animal. So regardless of the animal being brought in by a 14-year-old or a 22-year-old, whoever is the responsible owner of that animal is going to be responsible for any liability created by the animal. And then the city does have an immunity that we can raise if, you know, because when those issues arise, it doesn't mean that litigation would not be brought against the city, but we have a governmental immunity that we could raise, which would, if the immunity is applied appropriately by the courts, it would eliminate our liability.
Great.
So I think to avoid any misunderstanding, I would suggest, I agree with to remove the first sentence, not to have the
Can
age
we
of
go
16.
back to the first? I think it sounds like everybody's in agreement that the other dog park rules are the original ones, Hugh, that you had presented. Now, these are the ones that I feel like everyone's in more in tune with, so we'll leave that up there. But sorry, Commissioner Chang?
Yeah, I think take it out.
Removing the
Yeah.
first part of the
That's what I'm
sentence?
saying, yeah.
Commissioner Baird?
Palmer.
Or, sorry, Palmer.
He's
Sorry
right
about that. Sorry.
And I just wanted to say that 7 is fine. I mean, I don't know why we had issues before, but I personally think it's okay. I would recommend, and I'd like to, I guess I could, do we open it to the?
Yes, so it seems like nobody else has any more comment regarding this, the dog park rules. And with that, seeing as it's a action item, we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. Seeing as there are, I'll go ahead and close public comment and we can entertain a motion. Oh. Does she need the? Here. I'll give that to you.
You're not going to make a motion?
How do I do a by single motion, I'd like to motion to approve with the amendment of, a motion to approve, by simple motion, that the Parks and Rec Commission approve the signage language with the amendment to take out the first sentence of number 6 on the 6 for the language on the shown attachment, number 1. Is that right?
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes. We have new dog park rules. Thank you very much, Hugh, for that.
You're welcome.
Moving on to number 9, committee reports, Play for All Task Force. They're just working along out there, seeing all the construction going on. Committee reports for 9B, Winter Water Programming Committee. Commissioner Ramos is not here, but Commissioner Rucker and Commissioner Chang, would you like to speak about that?
Yeah, it's
Go
okay.
ahead. Yes,
All right.
you're good.
Well, we have attended several meetings. I think from my observation is I think the committee is very helpful. When the first time when we say we want to cancel the programs, we have a lot of committee have a lot of concern about it. But I had to say the committee meeting that helped us to open up the dialogue and have the discussions. And because of the communication, I think it solved the problem. Everybody understands where we come from and why we want to cancel the programs. But again, at the end, we did not cancel the program, and then we go through everything. And of course, we do cancel the aerobic programs. Number one is because of low participations. Number 2 is because the aerobic committee members attended the first meeting. After that, she didn't follow through. So we do not know where she stands and whether can she help to bring in more members and to activate the programs. So we didn't hear from her, so we kind of decided to cancel the programs. And the other thing I want to say is Melody had done a very excellent job, and she's always so patient and kind, and always cheerful, smiling face, and even though facing very challenging questions from the committee members. I know there are 1 or 2, ask very tough questions. And the rest I leave it to Melody to report to us. Okay.
Great, Commissioner Rucker, did you
Yeah.
also mention?
Thank you so much. I know the one meeting that I attended, the city had provided, some figures in terms of the number of people that had attended the event, and I forget if it was just overall or, per swim, but it was very clear, and I think they started at 2014, but it was very clear that the trend showed it was a very significant downward trend in people who were attending some of the water activities over there. So, I think we had called that out to everyone who was there. The meeting I was at, there were, I think, 3 or 4 members of the community, and they were very civil, very kind. But at least it was, my assumption, it was pretty clear that something attendance does need to increase pretty significantly in order to keep the programs at the same rate that they've been going, especially with the year after year downward trend. And this, again, wasn't just last year or 2 years. I think it was a 5-year trend that the city had shown. So at least from my perspective, it was pretty clear that something needs to change. I don't know what that is, but I think in any of our professions, if we saw decreased attendance year after year after year, we would have to change something. So that was at least my takeaway.
Great, thank you. Did you want to? Oh, you're good.
Not-
Okay.
If there's no questions.
Great, thank you very much.
Do you want to?
Well, do you,
Did you want her to answer?
So, yeah, I provided just some information, things that wouldn't be off the top of your head, notes that, come from this lovely folder here, on our committee meetings. So I provided that to the commissioners if they wanted to report out. I can, grab that from you and share a little information, but really it's up to you guys to share. I will just add that one of our members is unfortunately out of the country, but is planning to come to the next meeting on April 1st. His name is Lauren Beckhausen, and he's been a fairly active member and just, wanted to kind of share his perspective and thoughts as a member of the community and a member of this committee. So we do have an active attendance specifically from our lap swimmers. That's the primary majority of our committee members. And then as Commissioner Chang shared, there's, one aerobics participant who has unfortunately not been able to attend much. And then we have about 2 representatives from swim club. So, those lap swimmers, those are our heavy users. They're the ones that show up, and we have the heaviest participation level from that group as well. And specifically in the noon lap, we are still offering all the programs, shallow water, deep water, and the lap swim. We've got things as early as 6 a.m. and we have a program as late as 7 p.m. So, and then but most of that is kind of in the morning, midday. So that's just a little recap. We're working on restructuring some of the fee structure to maybe account for the low attendance so that we can have people pre-register for some of the things like the water aerobics specifically versus some of the drop-in that does have steady attendance. But when we have programs and we have staff waiting for someone to show up and no one does, and that's happening again and again and again, it gets frustrating for the staff member. It doesn't make sense financially. And obviously we do want to serve the community, but tell us you're going to show up, we'll be there. It's kind of what we're saying. So, and the committee's been on board with that. So that's kind of in a nutshell.
Great, thank you for that update.
Of course.
Commissioner Chang, did you want to say one more thing?
There's something I want the commissions to know is, and the community as well, the city do subsidize, and the fixed overhead and the maintenance of the pool, right? And the programs have to generate revenue to cover the variable costs, which come to about $68 per hour. Sorry? Yeah. Roughly about that, yeah. Is that right?
Yeah, it varies depending on the volume and whether or not we can kind of sandwich some of those programs together. As you can imagine, can we double up on the staffing and use the same person versus bringing someone else in, set up breakdown? But yes, approximately.
So that's why I think it's good to have the meeting. The community know that the city do subsidize. Otherwise, they thought that they had to show all the expense. It's not true. And the other thing is the challenge that we are facing is the lifeguard, correct? In recruiting.
One of, yes.
So we do try to approach a high school as well, and then we recently hired another staff, Morgan. Is it?
Yeah, we finally filled that coordinator position that's been vacant for, over 5 months or so. So that was filled.
So to help to train the lifeguard and to recruit the lifeguard, I think. And also the other thing they have done is the marketing wise. I think we do intensive marketing and try to get more swimmer to utilize the pool, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the big things is we added a banner in front of the Three Oaks right there on Alamo, so high traffic area, to let people know that the pools are heated. That's the big message on our marketing during the winter. The pools are heated, so come out. It might be a little cold when you're getting in and out, maybe when you're getting out mostly, but come in, the water's warm.
I know one of the member complains it's too hot.
The temperature's never right. It's a Goldilocks situation out there. Too hot, too cold. We can't please everyone, so.
Well, one thing I have to say, Melody, you have done a good job.
Thank you.
I'm glad to be in the committee. Thank you.
I'm thankful to have you folks coming.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Reports of Park Planner Hugh Hesterman.
All righty. I gave a fairly lengthy report last time, so I'm going to try to compensate for that this week or this month. Should note that in spite of the fact that we may have some new faces possibly on the commission, we don't know. But we have some work in front of the naming committee, and if there are reassignments necessary, that may need to be done. Most notably, we'll need to start working on some names for the Roberts Ranch Park. parks, possibly, maybe plural. As you remember, there was the 5 stroller parks. And also have been requested to name a trail after the late Robert Allen. And so that's another item to be discussed. I have a couple photos to share with you of the farmstead development. This was a photo that I took on February 12th. And it shows the orange fencing surrounding the trees that were designated to be saved. And they were. And I was surprised to see that somebody had even added a restroom to the park. So there you have it. That's a joke. Looking at it, this is looking at it from Orchard Avenue, so it's looking toward the east. I also got a photo yesterday of it looking from the west, just to try to help you visualize what an interesting situation will be where you build a park where there's some really nice mature trees in there. I also wanted to share a little bit about the Community Give Back Day that was Visit Vacaville put together on February 8th. And there was 6 groups that were brought together to do some cleanup work at Andrews Park, where they cleaned and power washed the storage containers. That's our Creek Walk storage containers. I have some photos to share of those. If I can get it. That's what it looked like before we started. And I think I may not have, there was some cleanup done at the town center also. Actually, maybe I'll just scroll through these and tell you about them as we go. Chipping all the old grout off of the stage at Andrews Park. And if you may recall, that at one time had been covered with natural stone, grouted to the surface. And over the years, it had been broken off and chunks were sticking out and it looked really lousy. And so this crew worked on that. Here's the crew painting the container. A little close up there. There's the finished containers, look real nice. This was a crew that went over to Peña and mostly worked in the Jepson Botanical Garden there and just did a really nice job of cleaning that up and making it look real nice. Another crew was working over at the dog park in Lagoon Valley there. This was the posting board before they started work. I was running around crazy that day trying to get tools to the right groups at the right times and everything. So I didn't get a photo of the completed job, but it looks nice. Commissioner McMahon's kids and some neighbors were working on doing painting of benches and stuff. Obviously, this is a before picture. I don't have an after. Here's the crew again doing some cleanup in the botanical garden. Oops, there we go. There's a finished look of that. And looking through the garden at Peña. Another small crew was working on demolishing the old harvester. This is the before picture. Again, I don't have an after. I'm sorry for that. We did have some nice coverage from the reporter, and maybe some of you saw the photos in there. I think that's the end of the photos I have to share. Other work that was done included work at Centennial Park, planting 3 Silcova trees and dog-resistant cages in the dog park. So we're getting to the point where the majority of the trees are now planted. Sweeping up a lot of the wood chips that the windstorm had moved away. At Andrews Park, they also planted a new crepe myrtle in the small kids area and neatened up the wood chips to provide good fall protection of the swings and slides. And let's see. There was a group over at the Vacaville Museum too, doing window washing and cleaning the exterior of the building. So I think that's all that I needed to share with you tonight, because last month I gave you a big package. Any questions about anything?
It is a comment, and I just want to say thank you to Hugh. He was all over the place. He was Superman that day. The only thing he was not wearing was a cape, but he he brought, it was his day off. He had a trailer full of tools and equipment and trees and supplies, and he spent several hours running through town, making sure that all of that equipment got where it needed. And Hugh, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commission Chair. I will also be brief. I do have a flyer over there, Hugh, if you can put that up in a second. But our new spring events guides are out. Hopefully you guys received those. It's funny, we just had our Recreation Expo this past Saturday at the Ulatis Community Center, and someone came in and saw the cover of the guide, and they go, that's my niece on the cover of the guide. So he was really excited to see that. So guides are, like I said, we just had our expo. We had a pretty good turnout, not as big as we expected, but I think we know why. It wasn't as big as we expected this past weekend. Everyone's a little touchy about going out, but it was still a good event. We have our Spring Fling Dance coming up on March the 21st. So we'll have music from the 60s, 70s, Motown. We have it will be a live music orchestra with support from the Vacaville Jazz Society. So if you can get out, you want to come out and dance, grab a date. I'm sure Audrey will be very happy to see you guys. And it's from 4 to 7, Saturday, March 21st. So keep that on your calendar. Also, we have this weekend, and you should have one of these small little postcards on your desk. I didn't have enough, so you can have mine. Yeah, you got yours, right? Anyway, it's our second annual VacaCon. Everything Comic-Con, everything dress up. This year we're using the entire Ulatis Cultural Center, the library, in addition to the theater. Last year's event was a huge success, so we're bringing it back this year. If you guys know anything about Comic-Con, you know these individuals really get into this and they dress up. The costumes are great. They'll have guest speakers, a gaming station, panels. I think the mayor is coming out to do some judging for some of our costume contests. So it'll be a great event. If you want to come out this Saturday, March 7th from 10 to 4, if you need something to do this weekend. Hopefully the weather cooperates. I'm hearing a little rain, but we're going to do our sun dance. So if you want to come out this Saturday, come on out. And that does it for my report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to echo Recreation Manager Hubbard's sentiments about the Expo. There were some changes this year. We moved from Three Oaks to Ulatis. And yeah, our numbers were not as high as we had hoped, but I just want to commend the staff on what a great job they did, particularly Audrey Calder, who was our lead staff person responsible for decoration. She did a phenomenal job with support from all of the staff, but we were literally under the big top. She did a great job, and want to thank Commissioner McMahon and Ramos for coming and helping out at the booth and the little pop-up survey and facilitating that. Appreciate your support and your attendance. And then I am really, really excited to share with you that we are completing the hiring process for our park ranger. And so his name is Justin Salvo, and he comes to us from Marin County Park. So he does have park ranger experience, and he'll be starting sometime after the 16th of March. So we're really excited about that. We really think that it's going to have a very positive impact out there in the parks, having somebody who's kind of functioning as an ambassador, and that there's a presence out there, and particularly out at Lagoon Valley. So we're really excited about that. And that's all I have to share this evening. Are there any questions? Doesn't look like there are. Thank you very much. And then next, moving on to Commissioner Palmer.
Nothing to report. Thank you guys, though, for the presentations tonight.
Rucker.
Nothing.
Nothing to report.
And Commissioner Greaves?
Oh, yes. Well, this perhaps might be my last meeting, so I'm going to kind of say goodbye in case it is, because I won't be here next month if it is. I left my business card with everyone, well, almost everyone that was here. So call me anytime, email me. I'd be glad to answer any questions or help you out in any way that I can. And I just wanted to say, I came to the commission in the beginning because I wanted to give back to the community. I had spent a career working for the Air Force, the Department of the Air Force, and they had spent quite a bit of money training me on continuous improvement and a bunch of things related to that. And I thought, well, if I, joined the commission, I could probably use those skills. And the commission did give me an opportunity to use them. And I used them on some of the projects that I've been involved in. But the thing that I really want to say is for commissioners, be a good steward of taxpayers' dollars. We're the voice of the community, so try to see the whole community. Sometimes it's difficult to prioritize our needs. Sometimes things get tight, dollars get tight, things get tough, so just try to be fair with everyone. I'd like to give a special thanks to all the staff for all you do for the commission. You make our job easy and you make us look good. You really do. If this is my last meeting, I want to express my deep thanks for allowing me to serve. Thank you.
Aw, thank you so much. And with that, with my report, Commissioner Greaves, and thank you for 20 years of service, coming up here and volunteering and to be a part of the community and be a steward of taxpayer dollars and trying to advocate for what the needs of the city are is a very important job, and you've been a great example of that. Thank you for your service. And thank you to all the other commissioners for being here and for serving and for giving your best effort to make the city of Vacaville a better place. Thank you very much. With that, the meeting is adjourned.